Today we speak with Alfie Roselli. He is a multifaceted talent, stand-up comedian, writer, and producer. As one half of the hilarious Hump Day show alongside his wife, Rebecca, Alfie brings his comedic flair and storytelling prowess to the forefront. But beyond the laughters, Alfie is also a seasoned marketing and biz dev professional, having collaborated with renowned brands such as BMW, Coca-Cola, and TD Bank. With a knack for leveraging humor and relationship building, Alfie has mastered the art of engaging audiences and driving brand awareness. Welcome to the Activate Your Audience podcast, Alfie.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, brother. So I know you'll be the first comedian, obviously, on the show, but you're a multifaceted talent. And obviously the show, we're going to discuss some of like our brand, communication tips, as well as just some of the best practices. But let's start off, if you don't mind, with sort of a cliff notes of your journey, kind of getting off the ground and now to where you are with your projects and with your career.
Oh, my career. Well, I started doing stand-up comedy in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And I think like with comedy in Canada, there's kind of like a limit to how far you can get. There's no like A-lister, like you have to go down to the States once you reach a certain level. So like that's kind of like what we did. Like what I love about the difference between like America and Canada is that like in Canada, there's like a glass ceiling. There's a ceiling, but there's also kind of like a safety net. But like in America, it's just like there's no ceiling. You can be like whatever you want to be in life. Like you can just all your wildest dreams can come true, but there's no safety net. So you could also meet a very bad end. So I was just like, that's what's so cool about America. It's just like at any given moment, someone could be on the way up or on the way down. It's just like everyone just has like a great story down here. So my wife and I, we moved from Vancouver. We took our 2 dogs. We drove all the way down the coast and then made our way to Austin, Texas. And it's just been great ever since. Like, we shot our first show was a Rogan and Friends at the Vulcan Gas Company, the historic Vulcan. And then now, almost a year later, we're producing a show there. So it's just having things come full circle right now.
Do you feel that professionally as well as personally, this sort of lack of safety net, considering the trade-off of, say, high risk, high reward, right? The whole American dream and just betting. Whether, again, it's your own business or anything else, going and striking out as a comedian, helping develop comedic acts, producing these shows. What is your sort of personal take on maybe the emotional management, especially as doing it with both you and your wife sort of involved in the business, right, of content creation and production, I'm sure writing partners and everything else that encompasses. How do you look at the sort of high reward, high risk, managing stress? As you said, you can find sort of a dark end. We know specifically within comedy or any spaces and entrepreneurship, there's a proclivity for just kind of spiraling if you don't have something good to hold or grounded to hold on to. So how do you see that in terms of managing your sort of progress and sanity?
I think most people get sidetracked by just looking at what other people are accomplishing and not focusing on what they've done. So it's just, like I said, like putting in perspective, like just a year, we're now producing a show at this historic venue, which is like pretty cool, but that's all the hard work we put in. But if I compared myself to a Shane Gillis, like why the hell aren't I hosting Saturday Night Live? You know what I mean? And I think that gets in the way of a lot of comedians. They get not just comedians, I think entrepreneurs as well. They get very bitter. They get upset that they're not accomplishing what this person's accomplishing. And I think like success is like, it's just, there's so much of it. Like just like that person's success is not your failure. And that's how you have to see it. Like you're on the path that you're meant to be on. It's like, yeah, you could trade your successes for that person, but would you trade lives with that person? Like your life experience is what brought you to where you are today. So I try to focus on that, but it is hard not to, because do you know the saying, like keeping up with the Joneses? Mm-hmm. Well, the Joneses used to be the person on your street. So you're competing with the Joneses. The Joneses was the bigger house on the street. So
right.
You could have done that. Like you can keep up with the Joneses because that's on your street. That's your neighborhood. But now with the internet, keeping up with the Joneses, like keeping up with the Kardashians, they're billionaires. So you're like, no matter what success you get, like as soon as you open up your phone, there's someone just doubled that. So I think that gets into a lot of people's heads as well. It's just trying to keep up with the Joneses. Is now the Joneses are like every billionaire on the planet, every entrepreneur on the planet.
That's so true. Yeah. And there is a tension there. And from what I'm hearing, like there is this sort of managing what is your race. And it's, again, part of the fabric of the American culture, the American dream, any sort of greatness. Like there's an mindful, or not even mindful, but like your performance coaching, right? We're a performance-based society. And at the highest level, whether it's comedy, even within a niche, or even in like the big pond, there are competitive aspects. In a marketplace, there's competitive aspects. So it's the nature of the beast, if you will. But there's also this sort of real discernment that is needed, like you said, to kind of keep an eye on your lane so as to maybe be motivated and understand and get some of like the heuristics and like metrics that help you perform, but also understand, for example, if we're talking about social media or the analytics aren't there for you. They're there for the app, really. And sometimes we can use them, right? We can measure and do reports and sort of track them, but they're really based on getting the app what it needs, right? We're the product, so to speak, if you are the user of the app. And so I think remembering that has helped this sort of like new world of keeping up with the Joneses, of having this understanding that yes, we can compete, yes, we can use these metrics, and it is a competitive landscape. But I think to your point, remember that the competition, although yes, is part of the game and requires other players in the marketplace, bringing it back to what is your own race and what you can control, right?
Mm. I agree with that. And it does. And you asked about like what's it like having a partner in it as well. It's just having my wife in it. It's helpful because when you have the right woman, they want like the best for you, which means like they want the best version of you, which means they want you to break some bad habits. So you have to like take criticism very well. So I think that's been very helpful and also been challenging at times, because you kind of like, criticism is something that, well, I guess a lot of guys take personally. Like, we always try to be very stoic, like, no, that's not what I meant, or you know what I mean? But having to deal with that has really helped me out, help navigate and network well, and going in as a team. But also like the social media aspect of this whole thing has been kind of fun too, just figuring out what works, what doesn't. And the funniest thing is just like, just dumbing it down really helps. Like when it comes to like, not so much the content, but like how you present it. Like, we were just discussing like thumbnails, and we would have like these beautiful, elaborate thumbnails. And then, but one of the videos that we had that popped off was just, we were discussing like the Vince McMahon case. So these stories are coming out about him. And then we just the thumbnail was, "This man is disgusting." And then that was like one of our videos that popped off for a while. And it's not like the content we had were any different, but we just started following the format of just simple thumbnails with just like one phrase. And it's like, that's just what popped off. So we don't necessarily have to change the content of the show, but it's just how you package it.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. A couple points there. The first one is, as you mentioned, a relationship, a good relationship. Obviously, the most powerful one is your significant other, your partner. But also just friends, right? Or even business partners, or vendors, or folks that you work with in the studio or the club, the comedy space. It's important to have people that have that character. And yeah, the person that you're living with, sharing a life with, is the most crucial one. And sometimes the only one that can get through to us. Or if they don't, like that's, where there's problems, right? If we are either too egoic to not take that feedback. But I don't know, have you, obviously with working with other comedians or working even within the corporate space with clients, what has been your approach to getting feedback from the work that you do? Again, whether it's, in a writing room or with your business development work, how do you check sort of this, if it's not coming from somebody you know and trust, like your wife, that has your best interest, but even from the marketplace? So, I ask that because if I'm, say, targeting or working with a sort of sector, right, in terms of clients, other businesses, and there's been this sort of feedback, I need to listen to that feedback and change my approach, right? But sometimes there is people's ego, or some people that may be highly stressed, or maybe they're not operating from the best place, right? How do you sort of parse between feedback in that terms to improve a product, to serve the marketplace, to write a better show, right? And balance sort of like your own insight and then the audience's or the collaborative partner's insight?
I think the best way to go about it is like, if you would write like, how would you feel about us going forward with this footprint we have for this festival? And then if they have a problem, like I always try to get an emotion out of it. So it's like, how are you feeling about this? And then they're usually more open if you ask them how they're feeling, as opposed to like, what do you think about this or that? Or like, what are your thoughts on this? It's like, if you ask them how they're feeling about it, they tend to be more honest and open.
That makes sense. More like just stating the sort of facts and then gauging their opinion, right? In terms of an emotion. That's a good hack, I think, making sure that you get their emotional input, because that's a lot of it, right? We're still humans, no matter if we're in a professional setting or in a comedy club, like we are human beings. So, okay. Now, with your background in both comedy and marketing, how do you leverage humor and storytelling to effectively engage audiences and maybe drive some awareness?
Well, I think, in business, if you can make them laugh, they trust you. I don't know. I just realized that if you can get them to laugh during a meeting, they will trust you. And so that is very important. So they will trust you if you say, hey, we need to push the deadline. They'll trust you with that stuff. Or, even with payment as well. So I know the people that I laugh with the most, they always pay on time the most. So it's just, that does help. And then, I think everyone just wants a laugh right now as well. So it's just, I think everything I've written has always had some sort of humor to it. Especially like in marketing and doing copywriting, and even some of the commercials I've worked on, that they've always tried to like add something into it as well.
Back to emotions, right? Like, how do you speak to somebody's core and then allow that to be a mutually valuable component? I think a lot of times, at least for maybe the more analytical of us, we think that it's just the hard stuff, right? When it's the soft stuff as much, if not sometimes more, than the hard stuff.
Look at for the Super Bowl. Like, look at the Super Bowl commercials. Everyone remembers the funny commercials. Like, I mean, Coca-Cola might have the most heartwarming ones with the polar bears and the whatever, but it's just like everyone remembers the funny ones. And those are the ones that will still get played. Like, people will share those. Like, Budweiser's Watts. That's like almost 20 years old.
And it still hits.
And it still hits. Like,
that's so true.
So I think with marketing, it's like that's a good way to really get people motivated for your product.
Yeah. Love that. Now, how would you balance creativity and strategy? Again, kind of spinning off of being analytical and being creative when it comes to content or connecting with your audience, right? As we mentioned, we can get emotions out of them, but how do you balance those two, both the meeting certain KPIs and business objectives and also maintaining the creative flow?
You need a to-do list. You need a to-do list. I think of anything in life. Like, it's so important to have a to-do list. Just write it down on a piece. Like, just write stuff down. Like, just like, you just start your day with just like this, and then just write down like 5 things you need to do. You'll know what you need to do. Because otherwise, it's just, you'll waste time cleaning the kitchen or like vacuuming or like sorting out your closet or like going online. But it's like, if you know you have 5 things to do, then you'll do it. So like, even putting in a creative thing. So it's like, I want to be creative for like an hour a day. And like, I'm going to get all this editing done. I'm going to reach out to these clients. Like, and then you just cross it off and you feel good. Otherwise, if you don't have that to-do list, you'll be exhausted by the end of the day and you'll feel like you've done nothing.
Do you do that? Do you pencil in broad creative time? Like, not specific?
Well, yeah. So it's like, okay, from 2 to 3. And it's not like broad. Like, you could just like go over stuff that you've written or stuff that you're working on. You don't have to like come up with like a brand new idea or you're redoing the wheel or something like that. It would just be like, okay, like especially with jokes where it's just like, okay, I know something's working, but how can I, like, if every joke is out of 10, how can I make this joke that I was working on that's like a 6 or 7? How can I make that to a 9? So it's not like you're writing new stuff every day. It's just building on what you have. So I would recommend every creative process. And I also play the guitar too. So that's always like a hobby I like to try on the weekend. But I mean, I think with everybody, it's just, you need a to-do list or else you won't get shit done and you won't feel like you're doing stuff. Because if you do the to-do list, you'll keep crossing it off. It'll be a little endorphin rush that you get at the end of the day. And then you'll realize like, oh shit, like I'm doing a lot. And it's just
That's
like
true.
that saying was just like get 1% better every day.
That's true. Yeah, for me, I remember the shift of actually using pen and paper, and I have like the worst handwriting. So like I would prefer actually being on something that where my handwriting wasn't as scribbled, but getting in the habit of actually writing it down slows down the mind a bit. And like you said, it has this sort of approach of seeing directly what we can do. And I think the trick is putting the important things too, right? Like making sure that we are not just having an extended, 100 list items. Like obviously things break down into multiple tasks, but it's important to know at a high level, like what you're trying to accomplish, right? So if the to-do lists are like the 5 macro points, then I've found it useful to just sort of elsewhere, like an Evernote or something, iPhone notes, whatever you use, break down those components. But having that physical piece of paper does add this sort of like tangible thing where with tech and all of these things, it's out of sight, out of mind. This keeps it sort of top of mind in terms of getting stuff done, right?
Yeah, and it does feel good to just cross it off, just the actual action of it. And I'm with you. I have terrible writing, so it's like if anyone steals it, they won't be able to read it. They won't be able to.
It's our own code, secrets.
Yeah.
Secrets are saved. Now, based on your experience working with brands or past clients in maybe the corporate world, how do you think businesses can pivot and level up their marketing strategy in terms of staying relevant with the current landscape? Obviously there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of competition in terms of content that is being put out there. What are your sort of best practices to leverage that sort of content creation or communication at even?
You can't please everybody. That's the thing. People try to please everybody. They're worried about offending somebody or this or that. It's just like focus on what you like, and there's a niche for that because you're not an alien. Like whatever you like, there's going to be thousands of people that like it. So just write to that. And that's how I would do marketing, where it's just like once someone tries to be vanilla and please everybody, it's just like you're pleasing nobody. Everyone's just going to be bored of it. But if you just like go all in on that one market, like these, like for instance, like these shirts, these are loud golf shirts. They're breathable, but I like loud shirts. And this golf brand's called Bad Birdie. It's not like it's not a snooty golf brand. Like they're for the people that like to go have a good time golfing, have a couple beers. So it's like it's a party brand of golf, and it's like, yep, that's my style. I don't really care if I don't slow clap my friend gets a birdie or some, you know what I mean? So it's like that's their niche, just the younger people getting into golf.
That's so true.
Like that's how I'd recommend from them. And then like all their promos, just people riding around the golf carts, having a good time, looking good in clothes, and with couples too, young couples. So that's their niche, going for the younger crowd.
So focusing less on part of the fundamentals, if I'm hearing you correctly, of the strategy is more focus on your tribe, right? And don't try to appease everyone. Just really appease what is true to you and true to your audience. In terms of building and nurturing relationships, right? Because you do a lot of crowd work, right? In your comedy show, but also, as you mentioned, within the corporate world, just building relationships, getting people to laugh. Besides humor, what other, I guess, points or focus areas do you think can help cultivate either your true fans, your niche audience, as well as potential new clients and sort of the relationships for business development? So for nurturing relationships, are there any other sort of cornerstones? It sounds like comedy is one of them, or just, relationship and getting people's emotional response. Is there any other sort of fundamentals that you follow that has helped in the nurturing and managing and creating relationships?
Yeah, well, I think if you want to reach out to a brand, building relationships is good. Don't be afraid to give people their flowers, but like, don't do it in a ass kissing way. Like, just like if you're gonna reach out to a client, first give them their flowers and then offer what you can do for them. That's what I would recommend to people. Be like, hey, I was looking at your site. That you do this really great. Have you thought about maybe adding this? How would you feel about maybe doing this? Because people are really hard on themselves. So I always try to, like, when someone does something good, I always try to go out of my way to tell them they did a great job, whether it be marketing, copywriting, or stand-up comedy, or producing shows, or just, I always talk to the sound guys. I'm like, hey, you guys did a good job, or the lighting, or just like everyone's setting up. I always talk to everyone at the clubs, just to make sure, And I think that's very important. Just give people their flowers.
I love that. The balance between being a good human, right? Encouraging people, sometimes a lost art in this day, unfortunately, but at the same time, doing it authentically, right? Like not being sort of people pleasy, ass kissing in a way where can be kind of gross, right? But also not authentic always.
Yeah. Well, because when someone's just like, because I see it all the time. People that are like, I've seen the look on someone's face switch to like looking through me. And then once they realize I have something that could, like, once they realize that, like, oh, I could get something from them, then they switch on you. Whereas all of a sudden you're like really interesting and important to them. So I think we've all kind of experienced that, where it's like you've gone from a nobody to somebody to someone. Like, oh, you're good. Oh, and you produce shows. Oh, okay. Like, I'm going to really ass kiss you now. It's like, okay. you weren't very interested when you thought I was a nobody.
The shift is real. Yeah, it's like those YouTube videos of like the guy in, I don't know, a postman outfit, and he's hollering at girls, and then there's a Lamborghini next to him. Like that sort of reaction, right? That's what that reminds me of. The change immediately, and then whatever. I love it. One last question to wrap up. Obviously, since quarantine, right, during the pandemic, you guys developed and I think you were still in Canada during that time, right?
Yeah.
And you developed the kind of live or online shows, right? Are there any sort of adaptations or ways of working during the pandemic that you still continue to apply today, whether to comedy production or to your business, that you've seen as like really powerful or just have opened up, some value for you and your audience?
I just ended up picking up a bunch of skills. Like, I basically learned audio engineering. I basically learned videography, and just and some, like, yeah, those are the skills I still apply to today. Like, there's no such thing as journalism anymore. They're all content creators. There's no such thing as movie stars anymore. Like, if you ask like an 8 or 10-year-old who's a movie star that you follow, they can't tell you, but they can tell you their favorite YouTuber. You know what I mean? It's just like that. Everyone's a content creator. That's the way it's going. So get on board.
Love that.
It sounds bleak, right, but it can be fun because you don't have to take orders from anybody. So it's just like, oh, I don't want to be a content creator. It's like, hey, you get to be your own boss, and you get to have your own personality. You don't have to read a script. You can just be your authentic self and just goof around. So if you just see it like that, and it is like weird, yeah, they're just putting stuff out there, but don't you get used to it? And if you're just your authentic self, just like, whatever, that's my opinion on things.
And that goes back to the authentic part of your brand, right? And of the people, not trying to please everybody. But I think there's also a balance, at least for me, in what we're trying to do. So oftentimes we have to be publishers, right? And it's not because we are content creators by trade. It's part of our work. And I think sometimes people get skewed on the actual work, like say writing shows and writing books and creating business value. And then out of necessity, we need to become content creators and publishers and, operators, but keeping sight of what the thing is, right? Like if you weren't a comedian, if you weren't able to make sales for a company, all of that wouldn't really matter. So it's this art and science of sorts of like making sure that the important thing that you're actually doing, comedy, business, whatever it is, sales, is the priority and not being negatively affected or sort of skewed by, I'm going to be a content creator for content creation's sake, right? It's kind of the marriage between the two and separating the two, I think, is important.
Oh, no, I definitely, you're 100% correct on that. But it's just like whatever your passion is in life, you can leverage that into content creating. Like a friend of mine, her boyfriend, he's into dirt biking. And he's just recently just leveraged that into now he's got like over 50,000 subscribers. But they can happen very fast. And now he's just getting bikes sent to him. But all he has to do is just ride a bike and review it. And like, who doesn't want to do that? Who doesn't want to like get on what they love to do and then talk about it afterwards? It's like talking to your friend. Like, yeah, how was that? Oh, it was awesome. Like, or it sucked. It's just, you're just giving a review. And then now that's a secondary income for him along with dirt biking. So it's like now it's getting reached out from companies to do unboxings. So it's just, you unbox it. This is what it looks like coming out of the box. It's like, because you love riding bikes.
Yeah. And there are micro skills to it too, right? Like as you create that, it's a good opportunity to create in it of itself, which is maybe also a lost art. Too much analytical thinking, more creativity. It sort of marriages those two worlds. But also there are the skills, right? Like you can't just, even though it's a good place to start, like just put something out there, start, right? You're gonna suck, accept that you're gonna suck. But
That's a good
also
point. That's a great point.
developing the skill, developing that you're not just sort of expecting the world to hand you 50,000 users because you just love writing. No, there are micro skills that you need to communicate better. You need to have some sort of production prowess or hire somebody to do it. You need to know how to read and understand the audience, take feedback, the soft skills. Like maybe you're highly sensitive or maybe you're closed off to feedback. You need to develop that character to give that feedback, right? So all the other things that actually make it valuable so that you can continue to do those things are also important, I think, right? To make sure that it's not just I'm going to be a Kardashian because I love unboxing shit. Let me just put on a video and, oh my gosh, I don't have 50,000 followers. It's the audience or it's this. And it's a self-ownership of, like you mentioned, taking advantage and developing those skills.
Developing those skills and just leveraging of like what you know, like, because everyone has something like they love and know.
Yeah.
But it's just, it is kind of interesting now because like I used to be a big movie buff. Like I had like, giant DVD collection. I loved shows. And then I'd always like, I would kind of like study like certain shots certain directors do. Like everyone loves that. Like, obviously that comes to mind, that perfect Goodfellas shot where like getting where they go into the restaurant, it's just one shot. But now it's just like, I think with myself and a lot of people, like we watch content and like see how they do it. Like what type of cuts are they doing? What type of zoom-ins are they doing? Are they having any sound in the background? It's a new game, but it is still kind of art. I mean, it's not at the greatest scope, but you can't see it as like, oh, this is like, it's just where we're going. It's just where we're headed. So you can't see it as like something lame and uncool or like soulless. It's just like, no, this is like, if you want to be a content creator, it can be a lot of fun and you can make some cool shit. And that's what I would say to anyone that wants to do it. Like, you can create the coolest shit in the world. All you need is a camera and a computer, and you could just be whatever you want.
True,
sell whatever you want, give any message you want. It's all up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, again, the barrier to entry being low is one part of why it's democratized in some ways, but also that's one of the reasons I believe why creating value is the most important thing, right? We want to make sure that we're offering things, or at least if we're trying to do it for the long haul, that will resonate and replicate sort of generosity, giving, creating. And not everybody off the top is going to be looking even for those things. So it's almost like you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you're going to start creating content, again, not being afraid to take the leap, as I mentioned earlier, not being afraid to suck, and then slowly getting better. But even you're looking at those cinematic things. Most people that watch these movies, they don't even think that that's a one-shot amazing thing. They're just like, oh, cool, unless they give enough of, they have enough of an interest in that thing to be like, oh, let me study this, like sort of being that sponge and curious in a way where then the development of the competence that, what is that? Unconscious competence to conscious incompetence, or vice versa. Now you know what you don't know, and then you can start to learn that is sort of, I think, sometimes the missing sauce, what holds people back, or even when they start, remembering like you start, like go through the suck and then continue all the way through to know the nuance of what you don't know to get better and become more competent in that.
100%. It's just like, you don't know what you don't know. And then, but just to make people feel good, when you start out, no one's going to be watching. So it's okay to suck.
That's a good point. That's
just your parents, and they support you no matter what.
They love you no matter what. All right. So I'm going to wrap up, go through at a high level what I picked out, and then you fill in anything that I might have missed. So first point I got is, making sure that the high reward, high risk is better secured with good partners by your side, right? Whether it's friends, family, a support group. If we're rolling the dice as risk takers, as creators, it's important to have this sort of community, or especially an individual, or finding, right, and creating these sort of safety nets, even where there are none, in making sure that reward and risk is sort of secure-ish. The second point that I picked up is, if you can get them to laugh, they will trust you. I think just remembering that, sort of not taking ourselves so seriously in business and life, And knowing that that effect energetically, right, to enliven other people's life can also have a residual effect in terms of reaching your KPIs, if you will. The third point is to pencil in creative time. I think that's important, and sort of being disciplined. I think about putting in the time to not just be a work dog, but like create. Next, don't focus on pleasing everybody. Focus on just doing the specific thing that serves your audience, your tribe. So be true and honest to your tribe and to yourself. And that parlays into also just being authentic in how you show up with everybody, whether it's a client or a colleague, to not sort of put people off in this sort of opportunist, or people pleasing, where you can be a lot more effective and feel good and deliver better value by just showing people what's in it for them in a way that is authentic and knowing your worth, right? And last, from what you did during the pandemic and developing your skills, is don't waste a crisis. Leverage downtime, leverage these situations to get better. And as we were kind of finishing off on that, is getting better is always an option, right? Developing skills is always an option. Anything else that I missed that you may want to add to that?
Be sure you saddle up with the right partner, because the right partner can put a rocket ship to your back when it comes to achieving your goals, but the wrong one can really ruin everything. You're just putting out fires all the time.
That's so true. If you had sort of one main action point in terms of communication, developing and nurturing relationships, what would that one action point be?
I would say communication skills are very important. I would definitely tell people to learn communication skills when it comes to texting, emailing, messaging. People don't know what you think or what you mean by that. So just I don't know. I've just had so many, just dealing with comics. So just you get all these bad emails and messages and they don't respond. So just respond to messages that you get. That's the advice I'd give to any comic coming up, was just learn social skills, learn how to send an email. No, it sounds like you're but comics don't know that. So if any comics are listening, send an email. And if you want to do comedy, you're already a step ahead of a lot of them, because you probably know how to write a decent email. So email the club if you want to start comedy. They'll put you on. I have a show this Wednesday, February 28th at the Vulcan Gas Company. Come check it out. I have a show with my wife called Hump Days. Hump Days show on YouTube. Check it out every Wednesday. And that's it. Yeah, follow me on @the Alfie Attack on Instagram.
And all comedy shows, everything on the Instagram, right?
Yeah,
for any upcoming
all
shows.
All the shows coming up.